Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you guys for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. In the house with me tonight is Robbie Rip Rains, coming to us from the great state of South Crackalacky. Folks, we got a good one for you tonight. We're going to be talking about one of my all-time favorites, The Legend of Boggy Creek. Not just the movie, but the entire incident involving the little town of Fouke, Arkansas, and the continued sightings that are happening in the area. So this is one of the movies I remember from when I was a kid, and really helped spark my interest in this field. Because I was pretty young when I saw it. I think that movie came out in '82, and I remember we loaded up and went to the drive-in theater, and a bunch of us kids in the back of the station wagon as we all watched that movie at a drive-in. And that's a blast from the past right there. I'm not even sure how many drive-ins are even left.
There's still a few, but they're few and far between.
There was one not far from here in Aurora, Missouri, but I think it closed.
They're more of a novelty now than they are actual,
Yeah, but over the years, I wonder how many kids were conceived at drive-in theaters.
I remember seeing Goldfinger. I think I saw Jaws.
I saw Star Wars for the first time.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think I saw The Empire Strikes Back. I saw a few, but I remember those for sure that I saw in drive-ins.
I like to give a big shout out to everybody that's saying hey. I was typing hello to everybody before the show started, but it's a little tough for me to type hi to everybody now that we're live. So if you giving me a shout out or saying hi to us in the chat, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for being here. We're so glad you guys are here. If you got questions, put those in all caps. We'll try to see them, and so the mods can kind of point them out to us. But I probably won't be able to say hi directly back to everybody that's popping in now, but we are really happy to have you guys here, and thank you guys for being part of the DAExMachiNation. So Robbie, when did you first see Legend of Boggy Creek?
I saw it after I had my encounter, so I saw it 83 ish, somewhere around there.
I want to say it was in the late 70s, early 80s when I saw it.
Yeah,
I know it was at the little drive-in theater that we used to have outside of town, but it's been closed for God knows how long. Probably better part of 40 years.
And you probably remember me saying this because I've said it before. That scene in the opening when the little boy's running to go, because you grew up the same time frame that I did. A lot of those old men in that store reminded me of my great grandpa, especially the one he went and talked to. That to me, that reminded me, especially when I first saw it, reminded me of my great grandpa.
Well, growing up in a little farming town, I mean, Lebanon is bigger now than it was, but even now it's only a town of about 15,000 people.
Yeah,
well, it was much smaller when I was a kid, and there were little grocery stores like that where where we did all our what my parents used to refer to as our trading. And they didn't call it grocery shopping; they said we got to go to town and do some trading.
Well, we had a little general store like that, and just up the road, I used to go with Pa all the time when I was a kid. Take me up there, and they'd sit out on the front porch and talk and drink coffee or whatever, and I would play around outside while he was doing that. But anyway, that Pa had a little sharecropper that had a house in that back pasture that I've told you about. In that whole field, that little field of broom straw with a barbed wire fence around it, the kid jumped over. That was in that backfield that I used to play in, that back pasture, looked almost identical to that. So when I saw that,
looked a lot like the pasture right behind our barn too.
And that's what kind of, I was because after I saw that,
And the foliage is a lot like the foliage around here. Granted, we don't have swampy areas. Okay, yes, there are swamps in Missouri, but they're pretty rare. And they're mostly just marshy areas that are just got a lot of stagnant water. There used to be a swampy area down by Hulls Ford off the Gasconade River, but it was just because it was backed up. It wasn't like a swamp.
Yeah, well, and that's the same. I say there was a swamp back there. And for all intents and purposes, it was a swamp, but it's more like what it's the runoff from where the creek overflowed the banks, and it was just, a stagnant. It wasn't like it was a cypress swamp like you see in Louisiana or anything like
Hi,
that.
Maryland.
But it's, in my eyes, at that age, it was a swamp. So, and it looked a lot like some of the stuff without, you didn't have the old Busquios or things like that you saw in the movie, but a lot of it looked like it looked in the movie. So after I saw that, it severely limited how far I would go back in them woods for a pretty good while. I didn't have any. I was the oldest. Next closest one to me around there was my cousin Ryan. He was 5 years younger than me. So, when I was 8 years old, it wasn't like I had anybody out there in the woods playing around with me. So you're thinking, I don't know if I want to go wandering off too far in there by myself anymore after you see something like that.
Yeah. And like I mentioned before, where I learned to pop my tongue was because I was hearing that from the woods at the back of our big pasture. And we've had, I remember on the farm, we had prowlers, as my mother would call it, because Dad worked overnight sometime. Dad worked the farm during the day, and he would sleep in the evenings, and he worked overnight at Detroit Tool Metal Products in Lebanon. But that's, that place is not even there anymore. But that's beside the point. But I remember nights when one of my older brothers that still lived at home, because my oldest brothers were in Vietnam when I was born. But my oldest brother still at home was my brother Buddy. And I remember Buddy keeping a shotgun next to his bed for prowlers. But, we knew all of our neighbors, and that wasn't the trick. So I think they just didn't tell me what was really going on around the house because I was little and they didn't want to scare me. I mean, I remember as a kid for a week, my mother had me sleep on a pallet on the floor next to their bed because of a screech owl that was outside my bedroom window. And there was no brush or tree or anything outside that window.
800-pound screech owl?
Yeah, it was a screech owl that would stand outside my window and make noise. And my mother wouldn't let me sleep in my bedroom. I was little. I mean, I was, before I even started school, that was like 4 or 5. But I can remember bits of that. I mean, I don't have it as a clear memory because I was 4 or 5, but I hadn't started school yet. And I remember, sleeping on the floor next to Mom's bed because there was something outside my window, and there was no, I can take you to that house right now. There's no trees anywhere on the front of that house. The house is still there, but it's not a farm anymore. The house is still there, but all the
didn't we go by there the last time I was down there?
Yeah, I took you past that. We drove right down past where that, because it's all a housing development now.
Yeah,
the house I was born in is still there, but all the land around it's been developed, and it's kind of really sad.
So I mean, and I think for a lot of people in the audience, I know there's some people probably who haven't seen. And yes, it was a movie, but it was more of a documentary than it was. It had paid actors in it, but the actors were portraying real people and real stories. And from what I understand, they stayed pretty true to what the witnesses were saying. Because I've watched a lot. Small Town Monsters did, they did that special on it, and they interviewed a lot of people that were actually the people portrayed in the movies, and they were like, yeah, they did a really good job of keeping it as accurate as they possibly could. So I would say it's more of a docudrama than it was a movie, and not quite a documentary.
Sorry, I'm answering something.
Yeah, I was just trying to, that's why I stopped. There was somebody asked me a question. But seeing that after I had my sighting, that just kind of, because you know how my parents and grandparents and everybody kind of treated me after I said I saw what I saw, and then seeing that, it scared me, obviously, but it also, I was like, well, hey, I'm not crazy. There's other people who are saying that they've seen the same thing. So it kind of, like I said, it scared me, but it also gave me that hope of, well, maybe I didn't imagine it. Maybe I did see what I said I saw, or what because when you're that old and your parents, your grandparents, your uncle, everybody's telling you, oh, you just imagined it. You kind of start believing that after a little bit.
Well, even though we had stuff I knew in the woods behind our house, my parents and my older siblings all told me I just had an overactive imagination.
Yep, that's pretty much what I got told.
And I gotta tell a story on myself. When I was a kid, the next door neighbor, Mr. Reeves, had the farm next to ours, just down a little ways, and I would always go down and play in their yard. And Mr. Reeves was like a grandpa to me because he was way older than my parents. And Mr. Reeves told me a story about what he called bob wolves, and I was just absolutely hooked on them. He said that they were part mountain lion and part wolf, and they would sneak onto the farm at night. Well, I truly believed what he was talking about. And my parents just thought I was nuts, and my older siblings still tease me about bob wolves to this day. But I know for a fact there was something in those woods behind that farm because I could hear it making noise, and I know we had pets go missing. In fact, one year we got a bunch of rabbits, and every one of them went missing. So there was something back there. Whether it was what Mr. Reeves referred to as bob wolves or something else entirely, but I believe there was something in those woods.
Before we go any further, everybody that's asking me about the knives aren't made yet. We're in the process of working on making them now. The reason I put that on Facebook is it takes a while to make these things. So I'm trying to get the gauge who would be interested. So that's why I said, send me an email so I can put a list together and I know who is interested and who is, so that way I can keep up with it other than just having so I don't have any pictures of them yet because they ain't made yet. We're working on them. That it takes a while. It takes a while to make a hand, because these are hand forged. We're not doing stock removal, drawing a knife out of a blank and drawing it on a piece of metal and grinding it down. We're actually working out of a forge and doing all that stuff, heat treating, all that stuff. So it takes a while when both of us are working full-time jobs on top of that. It takes a while to get these things done. So,
and it's, like we were talking about with Ken Brock's blades, no two of these are going to be identical because they're hand forged. Josh, did you take sizzle?
General, we might have to start. So we'll see. I don't know how much sizzle takes out of your profit. I'd have to check into that. I might have to ask Doc about that since he uses it.
Frank, it's funny you mentioned the town that dreaded sundown, because that was based on Texarkana, which is maybe 10 miles from Fouke, Arkansas. It is the same area.
Because William Lunsford, he lives in Texarkana, because that's where we went to Texarkana to his house that night, and then he took us back into Fouke down on the Sulfur River Bottoms. And that was amazing to go out there at night on the Sulfur River Bottoms for a lot of that stuff happened.
I got to drive around that area, but it was just me and Annette, so it wasn't like I was going to be able to get out and do any kind of documenting or any researching, because Annette, when we go someplace, she's got some mobility issues because she's got bad legs, and at the time I was still dealing with all of my back issues and everything, which I'm still dealing with, but they were getting pretty bad at that point. So I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to, but I really did enjoy driving around and looking at some of these places that are down there in Fouke. Sorry, Patricia. Remember, she's on her husband Frank's account. Yeah, the town what was that? The town that feared sundown.
Yep.
Yeah, The dreaded sundown. Yeah, that was right there in Texarkana. I've got some friends that live in Texarkana. And yeah, that was a pretty big deal for them. But back to Boggy Creek. I think one of the reasons that movie was really struck a nerve with me is because a lot of that area down there looks a lot like some of the areas I grew up. Yeah, the temperatures are a little different in Missouri than they are in southern Arkansas. But a lot of the same kind of trees grow there that grow here, like oaks and and elms and walnuts. A lot of hardwoods grow around here, and the woods get pretty thick. In fact, I would wager that you could take somebody that was born and raised down in that area and blindfold them, and we could take them over to Combs Ferry, right where the water meets the trees, and they would probably swear they were still in their home area.
Yeah. Well, and like the old trapper shack that what was the old guy that Travis Crabtree went and saw Smokey. No, that Smokey was Smokey Crabtree. But the old guy that Travis Crabtree went and saw. I can't remember what his name was, but
I can't remember either. It's been so long since I've seen that movie.
That old trapper shack. I had relatives that lived in places like that. So looking at that I can relate to that because it looked like my childhood. And so I think you're right in a sense that's why it resonated with, at least with me and you, probably a good bit of others too, is because it was so familiar with whether it be the topographical, the people themselves. Because, like I said, that old guy in the store reminded me of my great grandpa.
Well, you remember me telling you about stopping at Sleeper and buying those two old guys a pop, and then them telling me stories. That was just like that. That little Sleeper store, country store, was just like that. It ain't there no more. It's been gone for God only knows how long, and you barely recognize Sleeper if you drove through it from when I was a kid. But yeah, that was
right when we turned.
Like that.
Right when we turned when we was going down to Moon Valley, right?
No, Sleeper's on the other side of Lebanon from there.
Okay.
Next time you're up, I'll take you over to Sleeper.
Well, wasn't there was something like it, some kind of little store or something?
Little Windyville store.
Windyville. Okay. I knew there was something when we headed to Moon Valley that you were talking about. I thought that.
Yeah, the old little Windyville store, man. You could stop in there and buy a bologna sandwich for I think it was like a quarter or something like that.
But getting back to the story itself, though, the way they told that story and the attention to detail that the filmmakers pay, because when we went down to Texarkana and met William Lunsford, he actually introduced us, and I think it was Kevin Crabtree that played the monster in the movie, played the Bigfoot Beast. He actually introduced us to him, so we got to meet him, and he's a big dude, and he was telling us, he said they didn't want to make a Hollywood movie. They did want to make a Hollywood production, but they wanted to tell the story and they wanted they wanted it to be true. They didn't want it to be sensationalized. And I think that showed through. I think it was very well done.
Well, even though that movie was shot with a shoestring budget, I think the acting was pretty good. Especially considering none of them were really professional actors. They had next to no budget, especially if you compare it to a modern day big budget film. The costuming was not awesome, but they did so much with so little.
Yeah.
And in that one scene where the dude's taking a crap and that arm comes through the window, that one still freaks me out.
Yeah. But I think
to that reason, I don't like bathrooms with windows. To this day, I don't.
But I think the no acting skills, I think that played into what they were wanting and to make it feel, because it was just like they were real people out there talking. It was almost, and I don't mean this in a bad way because I know how a lot of people feel about found footage, because I feel the same way. But it was almost a precursor to some of the found footage because it was.
I can see that.
It was almost,
you would call it that.
Yeah, because it was almost like the camera just wasn't there, and it wasn't.
Yeah, it's like they weren't really playing a part.
Yeah,
they were just reliving their experiences.
Yeah.
But that's one of the coolest aspects about that movie. And if you haven't had a chance to watch that movie, I highly recommend it. Movie's called Legend of Boggy Creek. The sequels, not so much. Some of the sequels are kind of bad.
The sequels are true cash grabs based off of how successful the first one was.
But the first one was based on actual occurrences. The others are just stories. But the first one is still, to me, even though it was made in 1972, it's still worth the watch.
Yeah.
But what they brought up in that movie is kind of the crux of what we want to talk about tonight. Is yes, there were sightings in that area, and there are still sightings in that area to this day. But as Robbie has pointed out, there are some discrepancies. Some of the footprints, well, some of them were big 5-toed big footprints like we're expecting. Some of them had 3 toes, and that makes me think Gugway.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've got more than one type of creature down there.
And if y'all remember back, when we read was it Lily Moon?
Yeah.
Wild Hunt Lily Moon. That's where DA got all that got the Gugway from, was because there was a bean farmer. I think his last name was Brown in the movie, right?
That sounds right.
Where they found that trackway with the 3-toed tracks in his bean field. That's, to my knowledge, during that time. Now, I'm sure there's probably been more since then, but during the time that they were filming, that was the only time that any kind of those 3-toed tracks had been found.
And the track was, granted, gators have 3 toes, but the size of that track was way too big to have been a gator short of 30 feet long.
Yeah, and it wasn't right next to a waterway either. It was like in the middle of this 30-40 acre bean field.
And other than the 3 toes, the rest of it looked pretty much like a footprint. It had the rounded heel. I don't remember. Did it have indentations from claws? I know it was 3-toed, but it almost, if I remember the pictures correctly, I think it looked like almost there was like indentations of claws, which I think
it was, because when we were at the Monster Mart, William was showing me, he has replicas of the original cast that they made of those, or had. That it's been sold now, right? Mr. Roberts sold
but it's still open, but Denny sold it. And, my cousin Denny.
Yeah.
He's not my cousin, but when I met him and both our last names were Roberts, he started calling me his cousin.
Yeah. You got your last name and my first name. But anyway, he's got replicas. Now obviously he's got the real ones from the ones he's cast, and William has cast a lot of tracks around that area. So he's real knowledgeable about all the tracks in the area. So we kind of got to talking about that a little bit. And if I remember correctly, he did say that those had claw indentations in the front of them.
I'm looking for my pictures that I took inside the Monster Mart. So I know I've got them. I was just looking at them just earlier today, in fact. I've got so many freaking pictures in this folder. Here we go. These were taken inside the Monster Mart.
Is it display cases?
Let me bring this up, and then I'll run through a series of these photos. And I'm sure you'll remember a lot of these from when you were there. This is just inside the door.
Yep.
And then there's one of the tracks.
Yeah, I've got pictures of just about all these things myself from when I was down there too.
There you can see one of the handprints that was found. There's some of the articles that were actually in the local paper. Some of the artwork they've got hanging. That's a picture. Let me see right here. That's the Sulfur River Bottoms right there.
Yep.
And that's the original cabin that the first incidents happened when the old boys started shooting at it.
Yep. The Fords and what was the other?
Fords are the only name I remember. I know the other one, but I can't think of it.
Yeah, I always obviously I can remember the Ford. Patricia, Gugway is not. We have talked about that being a misidentified, or the top 3 Dogman being a misidentified Gugway. We think a Gugway is just another subspecies of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, not related to a Dogman at all. It's more like a mandrill or a baboon type face.
Yeah.
So. As far as anatomical, Casey, the only thing mammal-wise that I can think of has got 3 toes, obviously, is a sloth. Which, when MK Davis was it the last time he was on the show, DA's when he?
Yeah, when we were talking about the Honey Island Swamp Monster.
Because the Honey Island Swamp Monster, there's been a lot of 3-toed tracks over there, so he is speculating.
In fact, all of the Honey Island Swamp Monster tracks that have been found were 3-toed.
He is speculating that it could be, a relic population of the 3-toed sloth, of the megafauna version, the giant 3-toed sloth that was,
which could be the explanation of the Mappin Quarry.
Yeah, that thing was supposedly the size of like a minivan or something like that.
Something like that. This is me out in front of the Monster Mart. Okay, that's getting into the campground we stayed at, but yeah, that was the pictures I took inside the Monster Mart.
So, but I guess to answer your question, KC, I don't know, because a sloth is something totally different than. I don't think that's even in the primate family. I think that's in a totally different.
I don't think it's in the primate family at all either.
And
it's a mammal, but it's not a primate.
Yeah. And for the most part, people who have seen this thing, kind of, they more or less describe a Bigfoot type creature, other than like the mandrill baboon type face. It very well could be, because, like I said, nobody's an expert on this. It's all speculation. They may be marsupial. I don't know a whole lot about sloths, Casey. I mean, they may be. I know.
I don't know. It's possible.
I think as far as the known marsupials in North America are possums. I think in the duckbill platypus.
I think the possum is the only North American marsupial.
Okay.
If I couldn't remember correctly.
I couldn't remember if the duckbill platypus was or not. But I know for sure that a possum is, but there again, if it's undiscovered, I think, personally, my opinion, I think it's some type of Bigfoot, and I think that's either a genetic defect that's just been bred into them because of certain things, or that may just be, they may be more adapted at climbing trees, and that's just an adaptation for climbing trees. I don't know.
Randall Kildare says sloths are related to anteaters.
Oh, there you go.
Roxanne said, just a guy asked a question. Okay, let me see if I missed it. I don't see it. Let me scroll back. Just a guy. He says, do we know if terrible apes were 3-toed? I have not heard of any 3-toed primates. All, as far as I know, every species of primate they've discovered had 5 fingers and toes. I'm not saying that there couldn't be, but as far as I'm aware, I think all primates are 5-fingered.
But like DA just said, that are discovered.
Yeah, they're finding new things all the time.
So who's to say there's not one out there that only has 3 toes? We don't know.
And we are finding new things all the time. But to me, Robbie kind of jumped the gun on me. I was kind of alluding up to this, but we also noticed three-toed tracks in the Honey Island swamp monster. And granted, Honey Island is a long way from Fouke, Arkansas. It is the length of the state of Louisiana, but that is all swampland down there. It is tons of thick forest and swamplands.
And all connected
So
waterways.
and connected waterways. So if it wanted to get that far north, it easily could without being seen. So I wonder if there's a connection between the three-toed track at Fouke and either the Honey Island swamp monster or the Gugway.
I think that that's a very, very distinct possibility that it could be. I think that, and we've talked about areas and specialties, so for lack of a better term, and I know we use the bear example a lot, but that's one of the most plentiful mammal species that have multiple subspecies across America. And what 19 different subspecies of black bear in North America.
Yeah, there are 19 in just North America.
They're all black bears, but every one of them's a little bit different. Well, a Gugway and a Genosqua might both be Sasquatches, but they're still different. The same thing with tigers, same thing with sharks, same thing with birds. I mean, think about how many different types of birds there are. They're all birds, they're all avians, but every one of them looks different and has a different menu, has a different, a Gugway could be as different from a Genosqua as an ostrich is from a hummingbird. But
well, let me put this image up. Steve Payton sent me this image, and I wanted to share it. Since we're talking about variances within a species, these are all wolves. Okay. These are, every bit of them are wolves, but they're different types of wolves. Some of them are here in North America, some of them are from around the world, but you can see similarities, but there are also very specific differences in all of them. Yet I'd be willing to bet if you took a male of any one of those species and put it in a kennel with a female of any of the other species, they'd be able to crossbreed.
And conversely, you could put a male of any of those species in a kennel with any domesticated dog female species, and it would be able to breed too,
because they're all canines.
Mm-hmm.
But this just really kind of illustrates the diversity of what we think of as a wolf. Because I know when most people think of wolves, probably what they're immediately comes to mind is, where's it at?
Timber wolf or the gray wolf.
Yeah, timber wolf or the gray wolf. Where's he at? Well, there's the northern Rocky Mountain wolf. There's the interior Alaskan wolf. Arctic wolf, tundra wolf, Eurasian wolf, Iberian Indian, Mongolian, Mexican. Where is the timber? There's some wolves that aren't even on here.
Oh yeah, because I don't see it. I've looked all the way through all of them.
There's a red wolf, which we have here in Missouri.
Yep.
E.D. Testerman's caught him on his game cams outside his house. Those were what we heard howling in Moon Valley that night. Those were red wolves. But out by Joe Bald, that was a dang timber wolf. I guarantee you, because the howl was totally different.
Yep, that northwestern wolf looks the most like a timber wolf. Not so. I wonder if maybe that's just a different somebody. Somewhere else has named it a little different.
Well, look at the facial structure of the Mexican wolf. It looks nothing like the facial structure of the Arctic wolf. The Mexican wolf looks almost fox-like, but it's still a wolf species. So, even just, the Mexican wolf and the northwestern wolf are from the same continent, technically, but, 3,000-4,000 miles apart. And look how many differences there are.
Yeah, and Craig, to your point, there's also coy wolves too, from wolves and coyotes breeding. So but that's the whole point. They're all canids. So, just like polar bears and grizzly bears can mate. I'm sure a grizzly bear and a black bear could mate. So all these different subspecies of Sasquatch that we find, and we've speculated about this before. Every First Nation tribe has a different name for them.
Yeah. Well, look at this comment by Arkansas Hog Hunter. He says, I think based on the evidence at the Ford house, as aggressive as it was to keep coming back after being shot at several times, generally with that much noise and lead in the air, things leave. He thinks it's a gugway. I do too. I think at least part of the things down there are gugway. And I would be interested to know how many people have gone missing in that area. Because I've had something we could probably do a Freedom of Information Act request on. We would probably have to do it with either since it's right there in the corner. I mean, you guys don't realize how close to the corner that Fouke is. Fouke is right near. It's in Arkansas, but it's right near the Texas border and within just a few miles of the Louisiana border. Mm-hmm. So I would be interested to know missing persons from that three-state area right there.
That might be
because the Sulfur River Bottoms dump into the big thicket.
Yep. We've talked about doing a meet and greet and doing a camp. We've never thought about. There's a lot of camping areas and places down there. That would be a really good place.
Fouke would be a great place to do a meet and greet.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of almost in the middle of a lot of different people. So that would be how far is it from you? Because I think it took me 6 or 7 hours to get there.
Hey, dude. Miss Naomi says, are you familiar with the SWAT team in Shreveport that had an encounter with a dogman? I don't know that story. That sounds pretty awesome. Oh, yeah. I would love to hear about that, and maybe have you come on and we can talk about it.
I'm trying to think.
Frank says, can a coyote, it's Patricia, says, can a coyote and a wolf breed? Yes, they can.
Yes, called a coy
dogs or wolf hybrids. Wolves can, in fact, they in Alaska, I don't know if it's still a common practice, but I know back in like the Jack London stories and in the 1800s, the gold rush and everything, when their sled dog lines their bloodline would start getting too diluted, they would stake the females out when they were in heat to breed with wolves to bring the bloodline back toward where they wanted it.
Yep. But I think Arkansas's got a good point. I think that is a very, very good theory.
Roxanne says we better arm up good for that meet and greet. Oh, you can bank on it. KC, I don't know what a Freedom of Information Act request would cost in other states. I think they're free in Missouri, but it's been a while since I've dug into one. There may be a fee involved. But I would like to. Well, I did at one point have a contact and might be able to get something out of Arkansas because that's how I got that story about elderly people going missing out of their own homes.
I think I've still got William's number. I might get in touch with him because he would know that's his area.
Sure.
He would also he would probably also know where would be a good place for us to set up and.
Then again, since this is his area, he may already know about disappearances in that area. Why don't we'll see if you can reach out to him. Maybe we'll get him on the show.
I will do that. I will try to make contact with him tomorrow.
Okay. Wyatt says, where are we having a meet and greet? I missed it. We were talking about possibly, taking over one of the campgrounds down near Fouke, Arkansas. I still would like to do one here in Missouri because we've got so many active areas. Deloitte said my great Pyrenees just got after something here but chased it off, probably a coyote or a bobcat. We don't have wolves here in our part of Texas. Their thing is I was just talking to Miss Lene the other day, and the coyote packs in their area are getting like stupid brave. Attacked I believe it was her son's dog that she said attacked a pit bull and tore it up pretty good. Dog's going to survive, but and the coyotes are getting smart. They know that the stock dogs patrol the pastures, but don't leave the pastures because stock dogs are trained to protect the herd. So these things will skirt areas with stock dogs and come up to the house. They are learning. And remember, every time we go out And, because we used to go out all the time when Missouri had a bounty. But every time we go out and we drop coyotes, we're weeding out the dumb ones, the ones that get curious and come out. The really smart ones are sticking around to breed. Miss Lenny says, yes, it was her son's pity. Jay Freiberg says, remember me when you go? Yeah, we'll definitely put it out there let everybody know when we're planning on doing one of these meet and greets. But Miss Lene is not wrong. I've heard coyotes here in town. And when they're starting to come in to settled areas, civilized areas, when they start coming into towns, that gets dangerous because coyotes they'll grab pets. That's we've seen that happen lots of times. They'll even drag off kids. So if you've got a kid unattended in a yard and there's coyotes in the area, you might well lose that kid.
Yeah.
Miss Naoma sent me that Dogman Shreveport sighting. It's a pretty lengthy one, so maybe we'll talk about Dogman on Saturday, and I'll read that one. But that's right there from Louisiana. But Shreveport ain't that far from there, and they had a Dogman encounter with their SWAT team, which makes you think maybe there's Dogman in that area as well, because those are some thick woods.
The Rougarou. That Rougarou done got down on them now. You hear?
Miss Lene's right. Coyotes are opportunistic hunters. They'll take whatever they can get.
Yeah.
But that's not uncommon in canines. So that's why I think that behavior probably holds true. And we know it holds true in wolves. If there's a wounded animal out by itself, wolves will take it. They'll take it down. It's an easy meal. I think the same thing holds true with Dogman. I think it's a very opportunistic hunter. I think if you got back in the backwoods somewhere and you're by yourself, or you roll an ankle and you're trying to hike out alone, if you come across one, I'd say you're going to be a missing 411. These things are very opportunistic, at least in my opinion. And I think we're starting to figure out not necessarily where their range is, but that they do have a range. And if what Wyatt was telling me is true, and I believe Wyatt. I mean, I'm not saying he would make it up, but if that's what it was, because he's not sure, he said he thinks he may have found another pack of Dogman on Table Rock Lake. I think it's the same one. I think there is a group that moves around that lake.
Yep.
Brent Roberts says the coyotes here in WNC, was that Western North Carolina? We used to hunt them and with a dynamite and an animal call. No, yeah, we used to use predator calls to lure them in. I mean, there used to be a bounty. I mean, yeah, this was years ago in like the mid '80s. The Missouri Department of Conservation would give you $10 for the ears. You had to bring. That's all you had to bring in was a set of ears. And so we'd go out on the weekends and take a few boxes of ammunition and camp out and make some pretty decent money. Prospecting says I can't run, so I'd be bait. Well, I'm right there with you, man. I would be too. Just a guy says, is the map you were coming up with going to Cadillac Sasquatch or Dogman as well? If I can put the map project together that I'm wanting to put, I want to put pretty much every cryptid and just delineate it by a different like icon. Map Squatch, that's a pretty good resource. Mapsquatch.com. They have a pretty good map going. It's not like all inclusive, but they're slowly building the list on there. They've got a lot of really good and a lot of recent sightings that placed on there. And they delineate between Bigfoot, Dogman, and UFO, as well as haunted locations and just historical interest. But it's a really neat resource, especially if you're going to be doing research in an area and you'd like to know if anything's going on. But again, like I said, it's all inclusive. They're still building it. I wouldn't mind if I could reach out to find out who runs Map Squatch and see if I could join their project and be able to add encounters as we find them and places we found interesting on the map and that kind of thing. Because it would make it a lot easier instead of me having to build from scratch. Larry Berlin says, DA, northwest of Stockton Lake, there's a campground, marina, and 32 cabins for rent, all within a few miles. Dude, that is awesome. Stockton Lake's a great area. There's a lot of activity up that way. Roxanne says, DA, is there still a bounty in Missouri? I don't think so. You could probably, check with your local conservation area, but I know the coyote populations around in Missouri has exploded in recent years. There's a bunch of them, and even here in Springfield, if you go out, like I'll sometimes take Harley outside because I'm a night owl because I stay up late writing, and Harley's a night owl because he likes to hang out with me. So I might take him outside at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and I know Springfield's a pretty good sized city, but even at 3 o'clock in the morning, Springfield's pretty quiet. And I'll be out standing out in the yard and just listening to the occasional car go by on the highway a few blocks away. And if you listen, you can hear coyotes, and they're pretty close to town. They're not in town, I don't think, but I can hear them, and I know they're probably Robbie. Just like a couple miles from my house where that Union Cemetery was that I showed you. I think they're over in that area because that sounds like where they're coming from, and that is right on the edge of town.
But that goes to the whole thing that we've talked about things just moving in or taking back over areas that were, abandoned for
and
3
when
years.
We don't control the predator population, nothing else is.
Exactly, because they're the predators.
Right.
It ain't like the deer going to take the coyotes out.
Well, the not deer might.
True. But then there again, what's going to take those out?
Yeah, it's gonna. Well, that's the thing, and even Teddy Roosevelt understood this, that conservation is more than just not hunting something. It's about controlling the populations to keep things in balance, because any hunter worth their salt can tell you what happens when the deer population goes unchecked in an area. First off, they eat everything. And then they start eating people's gardens and crops and stuff, and they'll do hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage to crops. And when there's not enough food to go around, they starve. So that's why I think it's important that deer hunting is an important part of the conservation, because we cull a certain amount every year, and that keeps the populations from getting too high. Yes, a lot of people would disagree that they think it's cruel, but every hamburger you've ever eaten was an animal that was killed at some point. I'm not saying that they were shot, but they were killed. So that's how meat is produced. And if you never tried venison steak, you're missing out.
Very, very good. It's probably one of the best meats there is out there for you too.
I think elk is my favorite though. I love elk. Dude, I'll take elk any day of the week. It's my favorite of the ungulates. Just a comment. K Power says call of the wild hunt for the not deer. Yeah, definitely call them for that. Greg Schultz says mountain lions and Bigfoot take coyotes out. That's true. I've heard all hell break loose with coyotes out in the woods and wondered what was killing them. Dan Wernick says Four Corners checking in. You're from the Four Corners area out near Shiprock? Man, that is some beautiful country out there. Said it had a wolf hybrid, very loyal and protective. I've had several friends that had wolf hybrids as pets, and they are very, very loyal animals. Prospecting You says, DA, I've heard 2 howls in Anniston, and they were not coyotes. What did the howls sound like? Did it sound like that howl we played the other night? You want to? Well, heck, I'll just play that howl and tell me if it sounded anything like this.
Here we go.
Sound anything like that? Yeah, that still gives me the heebie-jeebies when I listen to it. Dude, if we'd have heard that out at LBL, if we'd have heard that night out at Joe Bald, I think you'd have been hard-pressed to catch my fat ass on the way to the car.
Well, if we'd have heard that night, we would have heard it from about 30 yards away.
Yeah, it was close.
You imagine how loud and how scary that would have been from 30 yards away?
Yeah, that you'd have felt it in your chest. Dan, I lived for a while in New Mexico for about 10 years. We lived on the other side of the state from y'all. We were in a little town called Clayton over in the northeastern corner, right near the Texas and Oklahoma border. But I've been all out through Shiprock and the Four Corners area, and yeah, that's some beautiful country out there. Shiprock is one of the all of those mesas around Shiprock are just magnificent. But Shiprock, you ever watch you watch the sunrise coming over Shiprock? Yeah, that's a sight to see. It is just absolutely incredible.
Steve said, well, there went the dog.
Dog's like, oh, nope, I'm out. Roxanne says that howl gives me the creeps remembering the Dogman I saw at 8 years old. Yeah, that howl, well, if I heard it out in the woods, I would be dropping safeties.
Well, me and John went out there that, I guess a couple of days after the first time we heard that, we went out to my real dad's house, which I think if we figured it out, Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we said it was probably no more than 5-6 miles from where that howl was recorded. We stayed out there 2-3 hours or so. Didn't hear or see anything that night, but I mean, that my dad's is where I found that big canine print that we've showed on the show before. So there's something around there.
Which one was bigger? The canine print you found at your dad's or the one you found at Joe Bald?
Joe Bald. Not by much, but the one if you still got it, the one we found at Dad's has actually got a tape measure beside it, and I think it's like 6.5.
All I can say is maybe. Let me check and see if I've still got it.
I want to say it was like 6.5, or maybe it was 5.5 inches.
That it?
No, that's the bear track from Ocala.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's. I don't think I have the other one then.
Yeah, you're right, Johnny. We did see UFO stuff. We saw some kind of light zipping around in the sky doing.
Prospecting says, no, I have one on my page that sounds like it from Hollins and Talladega National Forest. Can you send me the link on that? Prospecting? Can you send me the link on that? Just send it to DARoberts at DARoberts.net. I'd like to check that out. Little Patty says, if I would have heard that sound, it would have been a brown and wet pants moment for me. I don't blame you. If we'd have heard that night out at Joe Bald when we saw that eye shine, number one, it would have been, like Robbie said, within 30 yards of us. And two, I think it would probably been unfortunate that I didn't have the pacemaker back then. I'd have been getting shocked for sure if I'd have heard that close up. Denmark says, yes, it's beautiful at sunset. We have a beautiful elk out here and one moose and Bigfoot. I've heard a lot of Bigfoot stories from the Navajo Res. In fact, Jesus Payan was talking about his time on the Navajo Res, and he said that there are entire areas down this one certain road where everybody just up and left the houses because of Bigfoot, not only harassing them, but trying to get into houses or, chasing people. I said that there are entire sections on the Navajo Res where they just don't go anymore. Arkansas Hog Hunter says, if I'd heard that, it'd been time to fix bayonets. I'd have been fixing something. I know I can say that, but I don't know if it would have been laying down suppressive fire or just getting my ass to the car the most expedient way possible. White says, if Richard and I would have heard that on the side of the lake, definitely a brown pants moment. Yeah, that is not a howl I want to hear up close. I mean, I like hearing it on the recording so I can identify it. And if I heard it in the distance, I would sure hope I could get it on recording. But if I heard it from like the other side of a fence, I'm probably going to be clearing leather and backing away very, very carefully.
No, Rodney. If I knew what agency, which they don't give you any of that information, they just said an officer, and I think you gave me the initials, but there's probably 30 or 40 agencies around that area.
Hey, folks, we're coming up to the top of the hour. I think we're just going to do one quick affiliate tonight, and that'll be all we do. I'm going to take a quick second, and actually, Robbie and I both will, to talk a little bit about Scallywag Tactical. And one thing before Robbie starts into his spiel is one thing I want to mention right now, that if you go to Scallywag right now, because of Veterans Day, they have a 25% off sale. And I don't know if the discount code DA Roberts, I don't know if that would still apply. Maybe is all I can say. I haven't tried it, but I only get 10% off. You can get 25% off of blades right now, and they've got some brand new ones that just dropped that I'd give my eye teeth for. But it's going to be sometime middle of next year before I'm making any purchases like that.
Have you seen the new tactical series that they put together?
Oh God, yeah! They've even got a new folder that's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I saw that today in the Scallywag group on Facebook. I'm like, oh, well, as soon as...
And that's what made me want to mention the 25% off.
Yep. So, Coach, you've heard us say it time and time again. You're not going to go wrong with a Scallywag Tactical blade. I love my Scallywag Tactical knives. I mean, everything from this to this. I mean, they've got the knife that you need. And I'm saying this as a knife maker. If I'm gonna buy a knife, I'm gonna buy it from them. If I'm gonna make one, I'm gonna make it myself. But if I'm just gonna buy a blade that I want to go out and buy a good blade that I don't have to worry about fussing over and making myself, then I'm gonna buy a Scallywag.
There are 3 blades in their new inventory that I would give my eye teeth for, and I highly recommend these folks because they are just gorgeous, and I know the quality of Scallywag's blades. Robbie's got the Redondo right there. I want the spear point, not the Tanto point. I like Tantos, don't get me wrong, but they're just harder to sharpen. I prefer the spear tip on that. I also want to get that new Deep Six Karambit because it's just an absolutely beautiful knife, and I would love to get my hands on the one they call the Wanderer. That is just a beautiful little knife.
And if Scallywags weren't so good at keeping their edge, I would have felt the same way. But these things keep their edge so good. And I just love the way that thing looks. I've got spear point and clip point knives. This is the only Tanto that I've got, and that thing just looks mean. I know there's a lot of people who say they don't like them, but
I like a Tanto blade. Don't get me wrong, and I own a couple. But the reason I would want the spear point instead is because once you have to actually start sharpening it, the Tanto's a little harder to sharpen.
Brent, hold that thought because they're coming.
What was the thought?
Brent said he wants a Robbie Raines blade.
They are coming.
If you didn't hear, Brent, we're gonna Lone Wolf Customs is gonna be releasing some blades based on the characters in the book.
Yeah, well, like for Gideon, it's probably going to be something of like a Gladius or a Spatha. Then for Declan, there's going to be a blade called the Widowmaker. And in the books, Declan carries a pair of Arkansas toothpick Bowie knives. It's going to be an Arkansas toothpick kind of design called the Widowmaker. There's going to be a special combat knife for Clark. There's going to be one called the Margolin. These are all designs we're kind of working on. There's got so many characters. I mean, we got the potential for a couple hundred blades that he can design.
I didn't tell you this, but Tyler and I can't remember who, but somebody told me or said something about it in one of the messages to me, and me and Tyler got to talking about it. So I've got it in my messages. So if you're in the chat tonight and I don't remember who said it, just remember I've had like 1,500 people messaging me about these things. So I might not remember exactly who said it, but I do remember that it was. I'm not taking complete credit for this. I just, this is a good idea. So Tyler and I went and talked about it. We're also going to make a Warhammer for Clark.
Well, I've basically described what it looks like. That would be pretty badass.
Yeah, we kind of want to do somewhat historical Warhammer, but put some of the twist descriptions that you've. So, yeah, that I forgot to tell you about that, but me and Tyler was talking about it, and he was like, "Oh, that would be awesome." So there's even going to be
there'll be one for Valkyrie, and all the big characters you're expecting. There will be a knife based off of that character and named for them.
Yep. One for Jay Matoska called the White Bear.
Mm-hmm. A Gray Eagle blade.
Mm-hmm.
The Gray Eagle one's probably going to be a tomahawk.
Yep, because we're going to do tomahawks too.
We're gonna do well. Gray Eagle, when he was with the team, when he was with Team Odin, his code name was Fenrir. And if you've read the newest book, you see the torch of Fenrir gets passed on to Robbie's character in the book. The title gets passed on. So we're going to make two versions of the Fenrir, one that's Native American and one that's Norse.
So lots of ideas, lots of things coming.
D says the Steve Lilly blade. Well, we'll see what Cam thinks. I mean, Steve Lilly is his character, so it would be entirely up to him.
Yeah,
and we'll probably at some point, once these are actually concrete designs as opposed to just concepts, once they're concrete and I have a good visual description, these blades are going to start showing up in the books as well. Well, the Widowmaker is already there. Declan carries two of them, so some of them kind of are already referenced based off of actual stuff in the books. Because I have said in the books a few times that the Mohawk twins make knives. I think the military tomahawk that we talked about is probably going to be one of the Clark ones. I'm excited. I want a couple of those. If Robbie, with the design we talked about, if Robbie can make those the way we think he can, I want at least two of them myself. But anyway, that kind of got us off on a tangent after talking about Scallywag. So check out scallywagtactical.com. And don't forget right now, especially on the new blades, they've got 25% off. I don't think that applies to anything on the blemish blades. So if you're getting any of the older stock or the blemish blades, you're probably still going to have to use the DA Roberts 10 code for 10% off. But I think it's just the new blades that are 25% off. So check them out. Let them know we sent you, and don't forget they take Sezzle, so you can buy now and pay over time.
Proof.
Anywho's, that is our one and only stop tonight for the affiliates, and we will get back to talking about the cryptids. D says, if I can, I'll take a Clark, a Gray Wolf, and a Steve Lilly if we do that. I'll talk to Cam and see if I've got to get his approval. I mean, he's already told me I can write and use the characters, but we've had kind of an agreement. We won't do anything that's going to fundamentally change either one of our characters, because he's used the Wild Hunt in a couple of his as well. It mentioned them as characters. So we kind of have an agreement on that, but I would never want to do anything like that without his permission.
So if any of y'all see when the moderators put my email up there, if you're wanting and you're interested, just send me an email saying, yes, I'm interested in this blade, just so I can keep I'm starting a list just so I'll know. And that way I can, when everything starts, because it takes a while to make these things. Once everything starts getting going, I can send emails. Hey, I've got this going on, and we can deal with it. So, yep. When they just
You guys have heard me talk about the Sayok tomahawks from Winkler Knives. They are beautiful. I mean, if you saw the Terminal List with Chris Pratt, he had a pair of Sayok tomahawks in that series, and those are magnificent tomahawks, but they're also damn near $1,000 a piece. Robbie's not going to be anywhere in that price category, and if he can even, make those if he can make those designs even similar to what we talked about, yeah, I want at least two of them. Perfect. They're going to be balanced for throwing. These are going to be the real deal.
Yep. Because somebody asked the other day, are they going to be combat ready? Oh yeah,
absolutely. I do have some blades that were meant for just hanging on the wall. For my birthday one year, Annette bought me one of the replica swords from Lord of the Rings. I've got a couple of replica swords that I have scattered around my office, hanging on walls and stuff. But for the most part, I much would rather have a blade that is functional, that is going to do what it's supposed to do. And that's what I look for in a blade, and that's why I always carry at least one on me at any given time.
I don't know, little Patty. Maybe most of my family's from around here, but well, Patricia,
that's up closer to General Dalton's country.
Yep. Patricia, right now, all it is getting me a list of people who's interested. If you just send it, I'm going to try, because I've still got other orders with the laser engraving and stuff that I've got to get out. I'm going to try to get some stuff out for Christmas, but it's going to be hard because, like somebody said earlier, you can't just hammer out a knife in a day or two. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be worth anything. So for these things, DA and I talked about, for these things to be worthy to be tied to the books, they're not going to be just thrown together. They're gonna be nice. They're gonna look good. They're gonna be heat treated. So,
I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, if you're seeing what you believe is a Dogman in your yard, and you've got a good enough sight of the thing, don't call 911, because one, they're not going to take you seriously, and two, if they do take you seriously, they're probably going to have somebody come out there and make you pee in a cup. I would document as much as you can remember. And I'm going to sit down with Noah, and we're probably going to do a live chat with Robbie and probably Doc, and we're going to create an online form, a PDF that you can download and fill out, so you can remember. Well, and the best thing to do is, if you do have an encounter, try to take like a mental snapshot of the exact moment. You'll want to note time of day. If it's at night, position of the moon would be fantastic. How it behaved. There's a lot of factors that a lot of these accounts don't take in, and that's something I'm hoping once we get this form done, that you'll just be able to click a drop menu and select different things. But there's a lot of details that don't get collected that I think we've kind of stymied us, because there's a couple of channels that do talk about the position of the moon at the time of the sighting or the time of the year, that kind of thing. So I think once we start really adding that level of detail to our reports and our sightings and encounters, I think it's really going to help us paint a much bigger picture, and maybe even start predicting where these things are going to be at any given time of the year.
Yeah, I agree.
Roxanne says they need the number of the Wild Hunt team. Little Patty, no, we're probably going to do it as a PDF, like a clickable, selectable PDF. That way, when it's all said and done, you can just print it out, because not a lot of people know how to use Excel. But if we've got a interactive PDF, then it's just going to be click menus, and it should be pretty easy. Noah and I had talked about it already, but I want to get with Robbie, and we're probably going to base it on your basic law enforcement investigative report, you know, the same kind of headings, the same kind of stuff like that, because we're very interested in gathering that same type of data. And the real kicker of it is it's kind of been a disservice to us that hasn't been gathered all this time, because those little details may seem insignificant at the time, but they're very important, especially if we're going to start making accurate predictions on where these things travel, how they behave. You know, we need to do better about how we're collecting this data.
One quick addition to the knife thing. Johnny just texted me, especially for the Native American and the Viking style ones.
Mhm.
Some like more of the combat style knives, we'll be doing Kydex sheaths, but Johnny just said that that he's willing to come in on us, and the ones with the Native American and Viking theme and all
Do
that kind of
leather
stuff,
holsters.
do leather holsters, so they'll have genuine, because Johnny does leather work, does amazing, phenomenal leather work. So you'll have a leather sheath option with it. So I didn't want to say anything till I got his okay for it.
I think you should be able to choose whether you want Kydex or leather.
Well, yeah, some
Because
of them.
while I do like my Kydex sheaths, I don't like the Kydex that's on the boarding axe, because you've either got to wrap something around it to keep it from falling out, or you just got to deal with the fact that if you're jogging, if you're moving quickly, it has a tendency to pop right out of that Kydex sheath.
Yep, you're 100% right.
Good night, Cole.
But,
have a great night, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So we're gonna have leather options on it too. Because
Ryan, yes, they discontinued both the bounty and the
gunner's mate.
The gunner's mate. That doesn't mean they might not bring them back. But when they discontinued the one they called the Valhalla, I am damned glad I got one before they discontinued it, because it's the white whale right now. Even scallywag collectors are like, this is impossible to find. Once in a while in the scallywag group, you'll see somebody selling one, but not often. John Sanchez says Kydex cracks. Very true. I think, if I was given the opportunity, given the option, I think I would probably choose leather over Kydex. Kydex is neat, but it does crack. I've got 2 or 3 Kydex holsters that I've had to stop using because I cracked them.
He's just a little bit biased, though.
just a little bit.
But you're right, Johnny. You are definitely right.
I do like Kydex for what it is. However, I think leather holds up a lot better.
Oh yeah.
I've got some leather holsters that are still completely serviceable that I've had for probably 15 years. And then I've got a couple of Kydexes that I've had for 6 months and I've already busted them.
Oh yeah. And like I said, Johnny he does phenomenal leather work. So I mean, he does his own stitching. He's got his own machines. Do all. I mean, I've sat down and watched him do his stuff. He knows what he's doing. So if you order a leather holster for any of these knives, it will be done very well.
Cajun Dog says, either you ever hear of dogmen protecting people? Not any story I would consider credible. Most of the ones that I've heard where the dogman was protecting somebody have been pretty far out there. Very difficult to believe stories. Like, I don't know. I don't really want to single anybody out. Like, they raised it from a pup, that kind of thing. It's stories that are just impossible to believe. So I don't know that I've heard any stories of dogmen protecting people that I've really thought were credible. So I'm not saying it's not happened. I'm saying it's impossible. But the few stories I have heard of that, I really didn't buy, if you know what I mean. Poncho, just because it didn't eat you doesn't mean it didn't consider it. I mean, like I've told that story before. I came nose to nose with a grizzly bear where I could have went and touched it on the nose, and it didn't eat me. Now, if it'd been right before hibernation or right after hibernation, or if it had cubs, I probably would have been a bear bowel movement company. And the only way I was coming out of the Rockies was as a bear's bowel movement.
And
But
that's
just because it didn't kill you doesn't mean it was friendly.
And that's the thing. And we don't know how many times we're close to something like this in the woods every time we're out there, and we just don't see it or know it. It's just like if you could see into the ocean and see how many sharks were swimming around you when you were swimming in the ocean, and there probably would not be too many people that go to the ocean to swim recreationally anymore. So it's probably not one of those situations where they always go after you. It's situations where, okay, this risk versus reward. You know, I don't need it this time, or that's too much of a risk to go out in the open, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Just because it doesn't mean it wouldn't, and just because it's happened before doesn't mean it always happens. It's just
Cajun Dog says, I had one fight a Bigfoot that was trying to get me. That doesn't necessarily mean it was protecting you. It might have been a dispute over who was getting to you, who was going to eat you. I mean, just, you know, realistically, it might have been a battle between predators to see who got the meal on heels. Not Lyle. Thank you for being here, man.
And we're not, you know, that's not saying what we're saying is 100% right, or what. That's just you don't know. Nobody knows. Right. But, you know, and the greatest example of that is the grizzly man. He told everybody who would listen, screamed up and down, grizzly bears will never harm me. I know these bears in the bear maze and the grizzly maze. They will. I know every one of them. I've named them. They will never harm me. What happened? Is that always the case? No, it's not. He was there. How many times did he go and camp out with these bears, DA?
Lots of times.
Lots of times.
He's been going up there for years.
But that one time is all it took. They're animals. There's no way you can predict how their behavior is going to go every single time you have an encounter with something. It's just,
well,
you can
anyone
make an educated guess.
Everyone who's ever been around a Chihuahua, I mean, one day you can walk up and scratch it on the head. The next day it snaps at you for just getting too close. Those dogs are truly psychotic. But in the animal kingdom, though, behavior is unpredictable. I've had deer walk right up to me out at Springfield Lake when we were at the pavilion having a picnic. I've had deer walk right up to the picnic tables. Because they knew that there's no hunting allowed in that park. It's never allowed in there. So there's never anybody in there with a gun. But I've also, had other times like out by Moon Valley, you'd see 4 or 5 deer in a field and you slow down to get a better look. And they're like, oh shit, that car's stopping. And they're gone. So it's, you don't know you can never predict accurately what an animal's going to do.
Well, it's just like we were talking about the other day, that guy that's got the emotional support alligator.
Yeah, one day it might turn and take his arm off.
Yeah, but it's all over Facebook, and there's people holding it, and it's got its head laid on people's shoulder and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's an alligator. Do you really want to trust it? I mean,
Miss Naoma said Timothy Treadwell was repeatedly told by every expert who encountered him that he didn't know what he was doing, and that one day those grizzlies would do exactly what it did. Exactly, because that is their nature. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe these bears killed him. That's what bears do.
Yeah.
And just because it took one that was older and wasn't hunting as well anymore to pull it off, doesn't mean any of the others weren't 100% capable of doing it had they wanted to. K. Bauer says, so what you're saying is it's possible to pet a Dogman. I wouldn't try it. I mean, I seriously wouldn't try it. We're talking about large predators. Look at the people all the time. It's like almost a national sport. Look at all the people that try to get out of their cars in Yellowstone and pet the fluffy cows and see how well that comes out for them.
in Barcelona, Spain, it's possible to go do the running of the bulls and not get
I ain't
trampled.
doing it.
But it's also possible to get trampled because there's a lot of people that get hurt and killed in that every year.
I liked Hemingway, but it doesn't mean I'm running with the bulls.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible to go swim with great white sharks and not get it, as Doc would say. But it's also possible to go out on your surfboard to enjoy a few waves and get it. So
yeah,
I mean,
and it's always funny when I hear that he was swimming in shark infested waters. No, it's just the water. That's where they live. Or saying that shark's a man eater. No, that shark is an eater. It's going to eat whatever's in its domain if it thinks it needs to.
Yep.
I mean, it'd be the same thing if you went to a refrigerator and you opened it up and you saw a sandwich in there and you ate it. On the news that night, the other sandwiches aren't going to say, sandwich eating man attacks of innocent sandwich.
Sandwich eating man.
I mean, you go into the refrigerator and if you get eaten, it's kind of on you. KBRC, so you're saying there's a chance? Yeah, there's a chance. Or you could draw back a bloody nub. Again, I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't try it. Miss Naomi says it's also possible to stay out of Spain during the running of the bulls. Definitely not a more of a possibility for me. I don't blame you. I don't want to run with the bulls.
Yeah. It's also possible to stay out of the grizzly maze too.
Yeah.
It's possible to not go swimming in the ocean. It's possible to not go walking in the woods. I mean,
Patricia's right. Says we're in their territory. What do we expect? Yeah. When you go into the animal, into the territory of a wild animal, especially a large predator, you cannot accurately predict what they're going to do. And that includes large primates because gorillas have been known to eat meat. Chimps have been known. Jane Goodall, when she was doing her research, would lock her child up at night so the chimps couldn't carry it off. The billy ape has been known to carry off people. These are the big, and especially the billy ape are the big predators, the big powerful mammals in their area. And if you cross one, don't expect to come out on the winning end of it. Yes, humans have a tendency of taking out, animals with guns, but God forbid you're doing like I had a walking stick when I was in Rocky Mountain, and I could have just right on the nose of that bear, and wouldn't have been not a thing between us. And fortunately, instead of like, hey, I got a snack here, considering how big I am, I'm like Wagyu human for bears, but he could have easily went, oh boy, something to eat. But instead, I swear that bear had the same oh shit expression on its face that I did, like, oh, and it went one way and I went the other. And thank God it did, because it would not have ended well for me. There was no way I was going to stop that bear from killing me.
Yep. So, I mean,
just a guy who Yap says, you see the victim from the Travis the chimp incident and only wonder how an encounter with an aggro squatch would go. Yeah, because they say chimps are between 6 and 10 times stronger than the average human. Now scale that up into a primate that is twice our height and probably 4 to 5 times our mass. That thing could flip a car without trying too terribly hard. If you've seen that one video that was taken by the Canadian loggers where it flips that like 30-foot log and spins it like 100 feet, holy crap! That kind of strength, it could easily tear your arms off. So if and this is why I do believe that a lot of the missing people could very well, especially the missing 411, could be victim to something like this. But I don't think we're their preferred diet. Kind of like with sharks, we're definitely not their preferred diet. But if the opportunity presents itself,
especially for certain species,
right?
And that's and the higher up you go in those species, an exploratory bite gets more and more deadly.
Mm-hmm.
And
and if you got that what they call deep blue, if she does an exploratory bite, an exploratory bite from her could probably swallow you whole.
Yeah, I mean that's getting near on.
Cut 20, you in half.
That's getting near on 20-foot great white shark. I mean, yeah, and Cajun Dog just said it. Predators understand tactics just the same as we do. I mean, we've talked about that before. wolf packs, how they hunt, how killer whales hunt, how lions hunt. I mean, there is an understanding, there's an intelligence there. It may not be a human level intelligence, but it doesn't have to be. All it has to be is for the level of what they're doing. And we can't match that instinctual level that they have. So if we go out in the woods, we understand what we're doing. We understand the dangers that we're putting ourselves in. So therefore, we would never be the ones that would say we won't ever get eaten by bears. We won't get eaten by Bigfoots. We won't get eaten by Dogman. We're the ones that are going to like, look, we know we're going into a dangerous situation. Something happens, it happens. We're going to do what we can to try to protect ourselves, but we'll never be the ones that, and I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but Treadwell he was one of those people who walked around with his head in the clouds, that thought he knew everything and didn't want to listen to the people who did know the stuff. And what's bad about that is he knew the danger he was putting himself in. He just didn't want to admit that people out there knew more than he did. It's that girl that he took out there that didn't know, and he got her killed. That's what ticks me off more than anything. I mean, I hate that the guy died, but he took that girl out there and she had no clue what she was getting into. And he sold it to her like, oh, this is fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. And that girl died because he wouldn't listen to people, and he didn't want to admit that there were people out there that knew more than him. Those are the kind of people that I don't have any kind of compunction for.
Scott, we're not saying all animals can attack you. We're not saying, because there are animals that are, well, basically just, so passive enough they're not going to mess with you. But I've seen full-grown boar raccoons kill a dog. Some of these animals that people think are cute and cuddly can do a lot of damage. And I'm just warning people not to try to pet something because it's cute.
If it's got a mouth, it can bite you. Will it? Who knows? But if it's got a mouth, it can bite you.
And we've seen lots of videos of tourists getting out of their cars and trying to pet buffalo in Yellowstone Park and end up getting tossed in the air like a rag doll. I mean, and that's not a meat eater. That's not a predator. That is a large plains herbivore. Imagine if they tried to get out and pet, a 1,100-pound grizzly bear.
And I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to poke fun at the guy, but I do hate that he did that, because that girl had no clue what was going on. I mean,
I do feel bad for her.
Yeah. Should she probably have had some kind of,
well, they even had a bear fence up.
Yeah.
And it came through it.
Yeah. Should she have had some kind of common sense about it to say, well, it's a grizzly bear? Well, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe she was
believe
just,
that her boyfriend knew what he was talking about.
And
because he had done it so many times.
So, and I just think that there are people out there, and that Ocean Ramsey's one. She's one that gives people bad ideas, because she goes out and free swims, which there's other people that free swim with great whites, but she goes out and she swims up, she grabs them by the fins and swims with them and all this kind of stuff, but doesn't tell people, hey, look, I'm taking this risk. I'm doing this. I could get hurt and killed. She's like, oh, look, see, they don't hurt you. That's misinformation, because any wild animal can hurt you. It may not can kill you.
How many times have you seen? Did you see that one video of the guy that sprayed himself with doe scent, and that buck
and regretted it
crap
instantly.
Out of him?
Instant regret.
This is a deer we're talking about. It stomped the crap out of that dude.
Yeah, and then left, and it came back and tried to finish the job.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, if something like a white-tailed deer can do that, what could something like a Bigfoot or a Dogman do
Well,
if it got pissed? Because deer don't
there are
typically do that.
more people killed in Alaska by moose than by bears.
Right. But deer don't typically attack like that, right? I mean,
Right.
that's an
not normal behavior.
Yeah,
for a
that's
deer.
an isolated incident. So if a deer can almost kill, what could something like a Dogman or a Bigfoot do if it was pissed off enough and decided it wanted to do that? Which we know
It would
that
do
happens
a
a lot.
hell of a lot of damage. Even with firearms, I don't know if we could stop one, especially once it was pissed off.
Oh, I got Scott saying don't trust any. I think you probably meant to put any animal can attack you then. Instead
Yeah, I just kind of misunderstood that.
yeah. And you're right. That any animal at any time. I mean, how many people get bit a year by their own dogs because their dogs have a bad day and turn around and bite them?
More people are killed every year by cattle than they are by sharks.
Oh yeah,
because a cow is a heavy animal. It can inadvertently stomp on someone, kill them easily. I mean, that's a lot of beef. Somebody gets knocked down near a herd of cattle and they won't walk over him. It's a bad day. And hogs, oh my God, don't fall down in a hog pen. You ain't getting back up.
And you're right, Cajun Dog. Steve would always say, I'm
Don't
professional.
try this.
Do not try this at home. And that's the difference. Don't go out there and that ocean. She knows her stuff. She knows the animals that she swims with, but she doesn't tell people this is not something that anybody. It's that, oh, look, they're so beautiful. They're not going to hurt people. See, they're just, and yeah, 9 times out of 10, that somebody may go out there and be able to do that, but that 10th time, you get your Timothy Treadwell situation.
Mm-hmm. Just Ryan says, folks, you need to add a segment to your show where you presented Darwin Awards to persons who had a friendly encounter with a wild animal. Well, we couldn't call it the Darwin Awards. That's already somebody's thing. But yeah, we could probably do a featured, when animals attack kind of thing. I might start looking for some of that. K Bauer says, DA, have you ever heard of koala bear? I don't know if they can hurt you, but man, they make a hell of a weird racket.
Yes, and they can hurt you.
I really don't want to mess with one. I don't even want to hold one because what was it? They carry gonorrhea or something like that. They carry a venereal disease.
It might be gonorrhea. It's.
I'm gonna Google that.
Yeah, hit the Googles. Naomi was attacked by a tree frog one time.
They carry chlamydia. They carry chlamydia. So yeah, gonna take a big old pass on that. Oh, the open coloring book was already on it. Just the guys talking about chronic wasting disease. Well, we know that appears in ungulate species, and that's all your deer species. And Noah was telling me that there's, I can't remember what it was. I think it was a manatee or something like that as an ungulate. There are several aquatic species of ungulates.
Go back and watch our show on CWD and rabies and that. You and Doc had a really good show that night.
Yeah, we need to revisit that because I think there's more to discuss on that subject. I think, it's possible that chronic wasting disease is not a new disease. It's been around for a long time, and it's related to mad cow. It's a similar type of prion disease that affects the brain. I'm wondering if the chronic wasting disease might explain some of the old stories of not deer and things like that, because it causes some very bizarre behavior in deer in the late stages. There are videos of deer that, like, there was one video of a deer that just reached down and ate a rabbit. The rabbit was sitting right next to it, and it just picked it up and started crunching.
Oh yeah, I've seen pictures of deer chewing on snakes, all kinds of things. But remember that book that I told you about that I found right after me and you and Doc had that, where the Bigfoot clan ended up contracting rabies.
Yeah.
And it was a lot like CWD.
If Bigfoot is like we think it's a higher order primate, or even a possible like relic hominid type of Neanderthal. If it's anything along that line, that genetic line, which I firmly believe it is, because humans are on the primate list. We're higher order primates. That we're all along that same evolutionary branch. So diseases that we can get, they can probably get. Much like when Christopher Columbus first came to the New World, he introduced a lot of diseases like smallpox that absolutely decimated the native populations. So, who's to say, they couldn't pick up just basically any disease we carry, stuff we've been inoculated against it, since kids. We got our, like, for example, when I was a kid, we all got polio vaccinations, and I've still got my scar from my smallpox inoculation in the Army. But there's a whole generation that has that same stupid little scar on their arm. If you're over, I think about age 50, you've probably got that smallpox scar. But diseases that we've basically wiped out amongst ourselves might still run rampant among larger primates. So we just don't know. We don't know what their immune systems are like, or if they're carrying diseases that might affect us, that their immune systems have already pretty much taken care of, yet they still carry. We don't know, because we don't have a lot of close-up interactions. Most of the interactions people have are either from a distance or from a moving vehicle. But we don't get a whole lot of, hey, Bigfoot threw me over its shoulder and carried me off like a sack of taters and I got away. So we don't get too many of those stories. So we don't know. It's entirely possible they could have something that would cross species that would affect us all.
K. Bauer said he had a scorpion fall on his lap off the ceiling one night, and he never disrobed so fast in his life.
Yeah, I'd have been peeling like crazy.
Miss Thelma said she just died with her clothes on.
I do not like scorpions, not at all. But I think I would rather have a scorpion fall on me than a damn snake.
I think I'd rather have a snake fall on me than a scorpion.
I'm of opinion that there's only two kinds of snakes in this world. There's the kind of snake that'll kill you, and the kind of snake that'll make you kill yourself trying to get away from it. Not a fan of snakes.
I still think I'd rather have a snake fall on me than a scorpion. Them little scorpions is dangerous. Creepy crawly little things. They can pinch you and sting you. I don't know why I sound like Dusty Rhodes talking about.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, why are you doing Dusty Rhodes arachnophobia?
I think because when Dusty was doing his announcing for WCW, and Sting used to use the Scorpion Deathlock. Dusty one time called it the Scorpion Deathlock, and I think ever since then, anytime I talk about a scorpion, I just automatically the Scorpion.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of scorpions. I will take a big old pass on those. I don't like spiders. I don't like scorpions, and I don't like snakes.
And we don't have a lot of them around here, but we do have some. And I was up at my I used to go to my real dad's every other weekend. So I didn't have my own bedroom because I was only there, one or two nights one night every 2 weeks. So I was sleeping in the floor. And I woke up and they had an old farmhouse not far from where Rodney lives now. Well, the place where we went and looked at, or me and Johnny went. And I woke up and kind of stretched and looked at the door frame right beside my head, and there was a scorpion about that big, and he was about that far from my head.
that was my first dealing with a scorpion, and it was not fun because I was only like 11, 12 years old. Now, I was probably younger now. I was probably 9 or 10. So, nope, I keep my boots upside down, okay? Just for that reason.
Yeah, I still smack my boots together upside down before I put them on.
Nope.
It don't take once of putting a boot on, feeling something moving by your toes. It don't take once of that to cure you. Roxanne says Missouri has tiny scorpions. You love little bark scorpions. Yeah, I used to come out of the woodwork out at my Uncle Buddy's place. I mean, they were everywhere. He'd spray for them like 3 or 4 times a year to keep them out of the house. Trapdoor spiders are freaky too. I don't like them. Then again, I'm just not really a spider guy in general. But you know those are great examples of animals that have defense mechanisms that may not be very, very, very big, but can certainly do a lot of damage to you. I mean, you can die from a black widow bite. You can certainly die from certain snake bites, and that's an animal that is minuscule compared to the size of a human. But it doesn't mean it can't kill you.
Kay Bowers may have just made the greatest thing in the world. Woody Rhodes talking about a scorpion in his boot. Combination of Dusty, Woody from
Toy Story,
Toy Story, and a scorpion. There's a scorpion in my boot. Basically.
Roxanne said she had an uncle who got bit by one and laid him out for a couple of days. Yeah, they pack a lot of venom for no bigger than they are.
I watched this. What's that show that used to come on Discovery? With the people who had all the weird pets, like you know what I'm talking about, or Animal Planet. They used to talk about people that would keep dangerous pets and really.
I think I know what show you're talking about, but I don't remember what it was called.
This guy had, and I can't remember what type of scorpion it was, but they were like some of the most poisonous scorpions that you could have. They're the kind that you can only, if they get, you can have to shine a black light on them and they glow when you turn the light off and shine or an ultraviolet flashlight. And he had gotten, one of them had gotten out, or some of them gotten out and stung him, and I think he died or something like that. So they go over there to clean the house up and clean the room up, and they flipped the light off and had about 5 or 6 of those ultraviolet lights shining around, and it like a nighttime sky. There were so many of them things all over the place, a lot of stars. I'm like,
you know what I would have done? I would have thrown a bug bomb thrown in a bug bomb and released the Roomba and walked away.
Hell no, I'd have struck a match and walked away.
Burning this sucker to the ground.
Yep. Strange Attractions, Arkansas. That was it. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of scorpions, spiders, or snakes. Just gonna take a big old pass. I ain't owning one as a pet. I don't even want to be around them.
Nah.
And if I'm out camping, I know I could probably get in trouble for this, but any snake's a dead snake. They are not welcome in my campsite.
Like I said, I don't mind the snakes as much, but damn them bugs and scorpions and spiders. Nope.
Sherry Porter says when her husband was in Egypt, he saw those giant black scorpions. Those things are like land lobsters.
Yeah, and freaking camel spiders. Mm-mm. Nope.
Yeah, I'm going to take a big old pass on that. Whew. Lordy, we sidetracked from Fouke to talking about animal attacks. How do we get off on the tangents we get?
I don't know. We're talking about emperor scorpions now. This came by with this said. You know, one thing leads to another, and then that thing leads to another, and then next thing you know, we're 2 miles off the track, sliding sideways, knocking trees and bushes out of the way.
I think I would be completely astounded if we could manage to get through an entire show without losing our subject.
You know what? I think people would think there was something wrong with us if we did.
We'd been replaced by the aliens, you know. What, they stayed on topic? Holy crap! Miss Lene says we're just gifted rail jumpers.
Hey, you gotta have a talent, right?
We ain't even smart enough to follow the rails.
Where's the fun in that?
Our train takes dirt roads sometimes.
It's called rabbit trails.
Rabbit trails. Patricia Gambino says the tangents is what makes the show, guys. Well, we appreciate that, but you guys bear with us because sometimes, hell, we've even got so far off topic. Sometimes I've even forgotten what the original topic was.
But you know what? Like people said, that's kind of the charm of our show is, you know, we start off on topic usually, and then it just kind of evolves from there. I mean,
yeah, it's just an organic conversation. We don't know where it's going to go.
nah.
It just takes its own.
We have a starting point. We have a starting point, but we sure as heck do not have an end point.
Not always. Especially if you get the guys from Strange Road on here. God knows where that topic's going. And it's going to go for 4 or 5 hours.
I'm about to say, but we'll find out in 4 hours where it's going to go.
Don, you ain't wrong. He said, DA, there's sometimes there ain't even a road. Yeah, you ain't wrong.
Yep. And a lot of times the GPS signal don't even come through. You're right, Katie. There might be some scorpions in Fouke, Arkansas. You just never know, basically.
What was it? What was he called? Was it the atomic
bionic elbow?
Bionic elbow, not atomic elbow. Bionic elbow.
Bionic elbow. And he put you in the Weaver lock. Johnny Weaver gave him the Weaver lock, basically.
Man, that was the heyday of wrestling as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna try to get my brain back on track. Yeah, the Cajun dog's like, ooh, shiny. Exactly.
Squirrel.
But, yeah, squirrel. Yeah, but down in Fouke, I think there is legitimately more than one type of thing down there.
Like you said,
badgers. We don't need no stinking badgers. Sorry, it had to be said.
I saw it. I thought it. I walked away from it. You got it.
I grabbed the low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
Candy gram for Mongo.
Mongo like candy.
And now we're off the rails again.
Of course. Billy's tempting me. Talking about Johnny Weaver again. The Weaver lock. But anyway.
Miss Lene says if we ever try to get scripted, everyone will leave. Probably.
Yeah, we ain't ever gonna be scripted. There's no way.
There's no danger of that happening anytime soon. Closest we come to reading a script, closest we come to a script is when we do story time, and we're just reading and generally pretty much mangling some of the words.
Oh yeah, well we go off script on those too, because I'll be like, I can't say it that way, and I'll just throw it in a different way, say the same thing but just in a different way.
Oh, speaking of which, I've already mentioned that I been working on a Rocky Marlowe story for another short story. Started the story's going fine. I'd been planning on writing it as like a 17 to 20,000 word short story, much like the ones we've been doing on the Campfire Tales. Much as it happens with characters of mine, the story seemed to kind of take on a life of its own.
Talk about
And
going off the rails.
yeah. And about 6,000 words in, I realized that I was building to a much bigger story. And I'd already introduced one. I'd introduced Declan in the story, so Rocky and Declan would meet up because it was part of the story I wanted to tell. But the more I was establishing the story, the more I was setting things up, the more I realized that I was just getting started, and there was no way I was wrapping that up in 20,000 words. So what started out as a short story that was going to be called The Demon of Paladuro Canyon is now Dark Frontiers, The Demon of Paladuro Canyon. So it's going to be a full-size novel, and I'm already 10,000 words into it, and I haven't been working on it very long. When we get off here tonight, I'm going to try to keep my fingers crossed. I'm going to try to throw another 3,000 or 4,000 words on that story before I go to bed. I've got great plans for this. The momentum is already there, and just because it's set in 1988 does not mean it's not a Dark Frontiers story. Miss Lene and I were talking about that, and I don't necessarily have to tell what happened to Declan because it's all in the past. It could be different flashbacks from Declan, and also when the Wild Hunt finds those journals, it doesn't necessarily mean when they find one of Declan's journals that it's gonna be in chronological order. So that kind of really was kind of liberating when that thought occurred to me, is that means I could do a Declan story from World War II. I could do a Declan story from the Spanish American War, from a certain event that I've kind of hinted to that. But there's a lot of open territory for things I can do with Declan, because they don't necessarily have to find Declan's journals in order for them to explore. So this has become a Dark Frontiers novel, and if I can keep the momentum, I hope to have it done very soon. Miss Naoma says she's going to bed. Well, good night, Miss Naoma. Thank you for sending me that. Thank you for sending me that encounter. Cajun Dog says I was a baby in '88. I graduated high school in '88.
Yep. I was in high school myself in '88.
Just a guy. He says, "Are we going to get any perspective from the FBI when the White House disbanded and the FBI led the cryptid hunts?" If you look at that, when I mentioned that in the books, how the Wild Hunt was disbanded and the FBI took over for a while before the Wild Hunt was reformed. If you look at the time frames on that, what that was including everything that happened in oh god dang, what was the name of the show? X-Files. I was hinting that it was the same universe as the X-Files. Now I don't have the right to claim that. I mean, I can't officially put that in the book, but that's kind of what I was hinting at, that the X-Files was what happened between the times when the Wild Hunt was active. Cajun Dog says he just turned 37. Happy birthday, man. But yeah, that's what I was hinting at, but the FBI took over, that was during the years that the X-Files was on TV.
Well, there may be another short story that you're talking about that might take the place of this short story that was supposed to be a short story.
I've already got some ideas and notes in my head for another short story that is going to have some characters that you guys already know, and we'll see where that takes us. And I'm going to keep working on this book, and I've got a couple other projects going. Robbie, did I send you guys? Did I send the alphas any of Lakeview Man Dead of Winter?
Not yet. You said you were going to, but you hadn't done it yet.
Okay, because I've got a couple chapters of that written. I may go ahead and alpha readers, watch your emails tonight, as I'm going to send out an update on Ghost of Winter, the beginning of the Lakeview Man book, and then also the new update on Demon of Paladuro Canyon. So I've got a couple projects going, and I'm going to start another short story, and we'll just see where that goes from there. But thank you guys so much for all the encouragement and all the kind words. I'm a little sad to say that sales on Heart of Iron just have not been great. Just going to be bluntly honest. I expected it to sell like any of my other books, and it did at first. It sold pretty well, and then it just dropped off. So I think a lot of people aren't wanting to take a risk on it because it's a fantasy novel. But I'm really, really kind of sad that the sales of it are not very strong. And I will continue that series, but I've got to put food on the table. So I've got to concentrate on the series that are popular. So like Man's Marauders and the sci-fi, and now Heart of Iron. Those series, the ones that don't sell as well, may get backburnered. You may still get and Nightmare Hunter too is one of those ones that just didn't sell very well. So if they'll still get one of those occasionally, but they're going to get written in between the other main stories.
And y'all can help that out if you've bought the book, if you bought it off Amazon or anything like that. If you go do a review on it, that helps get it out there, because the more reviews it gets,
Amazon doesn't even push it until it gets to 100 reviews.
So,
and it's got like 34 now, I think.
Yeah, if you bought the book and you haven't given it a review yet, go ahead and give it a review. If you've read it and you think it deserves a good review, which obviously most of y'all are going to think that, but that helps it out, because once it gets that, then it pushes it in front of more people. So
just a guy to answer your question there, Kindle Unlimited still technically counts as a sale, although I don't make as much as I do on a Kindle sale. I make a smaller percentage because it's part of the Kindle lending library, but the Kindle Unlimited, I still do make something off of them, but nothing close to what a normal sale is. Yeah, and if you guys have read the book and enjoyed it, please just take a minute and leave a review. Doesn't have to be anything big, and hopefully you leave me a good review. But it just even just a I enjoyed this book, or good book. It doesn't matter what it says. It's the number of reviews that count, and it doesn't even hit the Amazon algorithm until it's got at least 100 reviews. So right now Amazon's not pushing it, and it's in different categories because it's a fantasy novel. It's not appearing in my normal categories, and it's, like I said, it's just the sales have kind of already dwindled off on it. And I was really kind of disappointed with that, because I really enjoyed writing that one. It was a lot of fun.
Robin, there's one in the Nightmare Hunter series, right?
Just one so far.
Yeah.
I've got 20 to 25,000 words into the sequel. The second Nightmare Hunter is called Nightmare Hunter Curse of the Rougarou, and it's set obviously in Louisiana. I'm about 25,000 words into that, but I've backburnered the project because, like I said, Nightmare Hunter 1, not a big seller, kind of like my sci-fi. I enjoyed writing the sci-fi. I think they've got great characters. They just don't sell very well. So unfortunately, I've got to concentrate on the books that do, help me put food on the table. And now that, my back's shot and I can't be a cop anymore, that's pretty much our primary income. Kay Bauer says, DA talking about Texarkana and Fouke. Wasn't there a popular Dogman story from that area? I think so. But when I was digging up encounter stories from that area, I didn't find any Dogman one. Map Squatch doesn't have that many, which is kind of surprising that they don't have many from right there at Fouke. But they do have one that's pretty much in downtown Fouke, in a field right at the edge of town. But there are scattered all over that area, but not as many as you would think. But there's a lot more down toward Marshall, Texas. And there's a Dogman story out of Shreveport. Multiple stories out of the Shreveport area of Dogman sightings. but Map Squatch is a good resource. But again, kind of going back to the books, thank you guys so much for all your kind words and encouragement. And I will be doing the next fantasy sequel, the next one in that series. It's going to be called Leaves of Silver. But it's probably going to be a little while before I get that out, because I've got to concentrate on keeping the lights on and keeping the family fed, instead of just writing the stories I want to write in the order I want to write them. So that's why I'm going to get this Dark Frontier out, the Lakeview Man out, get the next Codename Wild Hunt and Apex out, and the whole time I'll be working on others in the background, here and there. Because when I run into how I deal with writer's block, when I run into a block and I don't know where to go on one story, I just switch stories, and then I'll work on another project until my head clears and I go back to the one I really want to get done. Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate that. Steve said he enjoyed Nightmare Hunter. I enjoyed Nightmare Hunter. It was fun to write. I was a little disappointed it didn't go off quite as good as I thought it would. I thought the story was fit right in with the rest of the Wild Hunt universe and everything. It just hasn't been one of my more popular books. D says, any Wild Hunt books in the future? Yeah, very near future. Hopefully somewhere. Depends on how fast things go. If I can keep the progress going and keep the lights on, because like I said, book sales have been pretty low. If I can keep the lights on and keep the internet, and keep the bills paid over the next few months, I hope to get 3 or 4 more releases out in fairly short order. And as long as things, as long as things keep going. But I'll be completely honest with you. Sometimes I get so stressed out over stuff, I just have to walk away from the keyboard, and I can't even think about writing because I got so much other on my mind. And I hate that, but it's the truth. I mean, you can ask my wife. I don't deal with stress well, and when I'm worried about how we're going to pay a bill, I can't write. I'm too too stuck in my own head, and I apologize for that. I would like to be doing more and like to be writing more, but sometimes it's not like a faucet. I just can't turn it on and off. It's when it flows, it flows. Just a guy who says, seriously, it appears that on Kindle they remove the option to view the author's page via clicking the author's name. Now I have to spend. I'll look into that and see if I can fix that on my end, because I may have to go to author. There's a website that's part of Amazon that's called Author Central, and it's just for the authors. And you log in, and that's how you do your online bio and choose which books are yours. It should have automatically done that, but if it didn't, I'll have to go through Author Central and make sure that that it's actually attributed to me other than just saying my name. D says, anything you can tell us about that Wild Hunt book? Yeah, it's going to be set underwater. You're gonna see you're going to see part of the continued buildup to what I've alluded to as the big war that's coming, and that's going to take place across multiple books. But this is going to be one of the linchpin books that starts the ball rolling. It's going to be set underwater, and the tentative title right now is Codename Wild Hunt Gray Lady Down. I don't know 100% for sure if that's the term the Navy still uses, but back in the 80s, that was the code name they used when they lost a submarine. I've got some folks looking into finding out what current terminology is, so the title might change, but it's going to, well, not to give away too terribly much, but I think I may have done it again like I did with the mimic units and hit a little close to home on actual technology that we're not supposed to know exists. So I'm sending my notes to a buddy of mine, and we're going to make sure I'm not too terribly close to certain intellectual properties that might get me an unfriendly visit and a cease and desist. So I guess I pulled a Tom Clancy again. I'm like, I know we can do this, but I bet we can do this. So I think when I sent those notes to somebody, they were like, yeah, yeah, you might want to scale this back. You're a little close to some stuff we've actually got. And there might be some folks want to know how you found out. Curtis Murray says, your next release, go live, bro. Let us show some love and jump on the stage. I think that's probably not a bad idea. I think the right before we released Heart of Iron, we actually read a chat. What was it? 2 chapters on here. We actually read 2 chapters of Heart of Iron right before we released it, and I really had hoped that would drum up some interest in Heart of Iron. Because we get,
everybody
on
on
average,
here
we get between
loved it.
1,000 and 2,000 views on an episode that we release. And I was hoping that, a couple thousand people hearing that first couple chapters would make them want to read the rest of the book. It just has not worked out that way. Karen says, DA, could you have the DA verse on your Amazon author page? I need to go back and rework my author page. I posted something earlier today on Facebook. I shared it from another author. But it's one of the things, and it's kind of hard to explain. Because unless you're like one of the big publishing houses like Random House or Bantam, unless you're one of the big publishing houses, even with the small publishers, they don't have the budget. Only the big guys have the budget to truly pay for advertising for books. I don't have that advertising budget. So all of my advertising, all of my stuff, I have to do myself. And I'm not good at it. When I started writing, I had no idea I was going to have to understand how marketing worked. And I basically just do trial and error with the marketing. I'll try something. If it works, I do it again. If it doesn't, I'm going to try something else. I really, really wish I knew more about the marketing, but it's incredibly time consuming. And it does take away from the writing. It takes a lot of time away just to try to keep sales going while I'm working on other projects. And I would love to be able to just like say, hey, Jimmy Joe, you know how to market, take over, do my marketing for me, but I can't afford to pay anybody. I mean, we're, at this point, we're keeping the lights on and we're not doing a hell of a lot better than that. The economy is just terrible right now. And I don't blame anybody. I don't blame any of y'all. I don't even really blame myself. It's just the economy sucks, and everybody's tight with money right now, and I totally get it. When times are lean, one of the first things that goes is entertainment, because it's more important to keep food on the table than it is to have a book to read, because you can always go back and read an old book you already got on the shelf. So yeah, people who are in the entertainment industry take a pretty big hit when the economy gets bad. And, unfortunately, I don't have the sales of like a Larry Correa or Stephen King or anybody like that. I'm still at that point where I'm climbing that ladder, trying to get my name out there. And I've jokingly said before, if Stephen King woke up with my sales tomorrow, he'd hang himself from a shower curtain rod. And that, it's sad to say, it's really not far from the truth. I mean, that guy probably makes more money signing books and autographs than I do in a year. So authors don't make a whole hell of a lot of money, and unfortunately, Amazon takes the lion's share, especially in print. In print, I make about 30% of the sale, maybe. I make more in the Kindle, but the Kindle sells for a lot less than the print version. So, in the end of the day, print and Kindle, I make pretty close to the same money off both. But 90% of my sales are in Kindle. I don't know. I got off on a tangent here. I wasn't meaning to get on a soapbox and sound like I was complaining, because I know we all got it rough right now. But I just kind of saying where I'm at. I've been stressed out a lot. I've been dealing with a lot, especially with my health. And that's my writing has suffered for it. I should have had 3 or 4 more books out this year than I've had. But I spent 6 months of this year recuperating from surgeries and back issues and everything else under the damn sun. I can't seem to stay healthy. So, and that's what it is. I wish I was able to put out 6, 7 books a year. I just realistically can't right now. Thank you, Miss Lene. Yeah, that would be awesome. If you guys enjoy my books, I would love it very much. So I'd consider it a great personal favor if you mention my books or share links on your social media. For those of you who are in any of our groups, I've got 3. I've got the Nightmare Hunter group. I've got I don't even remember what the other 2 are called. Cryptids and Monsters or something like that, and Team DA. But if you're a member of any of those groups, those are private groups, so you can't just share the article, but you can click on it and then copy the entire text and just paste it directly to your timeline. I also share those same links on my personal page. So if you're friends with me on Facebook, you can just go to my main page and scroll down on my page until you find one of the book listings and just share it. And I've got the newest one pinned at the top of my page. So if you go to my personal page, the new book is right there at the top. And Arlen, thank you. I completely derailed my train of thought. Well, that's pretty much where we are. Patricia, have a great night. We'll be praying for you. I hope you get to feeling better, and we're definitely praying for you. But folks, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We had a great time tonight. I didn't mean to kind of get on my soapbox there toward the end, but I just kind of wanted to let you know where things are and how things kind of stand. So I am trying to get more books out, but sometimes it's a bit more of a process than I was ready for, especially the marketing. I would love to have someone do a newsletter. I would love to have somebody, handle the marketing, share links in different groups and help me keep, posts going, but I just can't afford to hire anybody. So that is where I am. Now I'll keep slogging away doing the best I can, but it's an uphill battle. And years ago, when I first started as an author, when I had my first book out, I read a book about book marketing because I didn't know what to do. And they liken it to rolling a ball, like rolling a large heavy stone up a hill. And they said, you're going to struggle to push that stone up that hill. But when you reach the top of the hill, they have something that they call a tipping point. And that's at the point where the gravity of the other side of the hill takes that ball. So, John, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you. And when that ball gains its own momentum and takes off on itself, that's when authors start to succeed. I haven't reached that point yet. I mean, I'm not at a Larry Correa level or a Jonathan Mayberry level or a Stephen King. Those guys could put out a book tomorrow and it's going to be a bestseller because they are huge name draws. And I'm still struggling to get to that point. And I may never get there. I mean, just realistically, I may never get there. Some of it's luck. Some of it is having the right publicist. But they're all at stages of their career where I would love to be at.
But here's the thing, and I'm sure there are people in the audience that feel the same way. I've read every one of Larry Correa's books. Every single one of them. I've read probably 85 to 90% of Stephen King's books. And I'm not just saying this because you're my best friend and you're my brother and I love you. Your books are better than theirs. Your books keep me interested way more than theirs do. But the problem is like you said, you don't have a way to get it out there. I guarantee you, if your books were in front of the people who like Stephen King's books, and especially the ones who like Larry Correa's books, because there's a lot of similarities of not how you two write, but there's a lot of similarities of the subject matter.
There's some similarities with me and Jonathan Mayberry too.
Yeah,
He's got
I guarantee
the Joe Ledger series is very much like Wild Hunt.
I guarantee you, if your stuff was in front of a broader audience, you would be there.
I hope I get there. I really do. But
Yep,
some
Curtis
of that
Scalp
is
Hunter has spoken.
they some of that is luck. Some of that is just absolute blind luck, like lightning in a bottle.
Yep.
We have told my wife before. I said all it takes is the right person to pick up a book, like somebody that, for example, a movie producer or an executive at HBO just happens upon one of my books, and boom, you become an overnight success because they're like, hey, I've got to make this into something, or the right producer, the right just the sheer luck factor. But all the other side of it is all hard work, and I've worked my ass off for the last 12 years trying to get my writing out as far as I can. But I'm learning kind of the hard way. There's only so much I'm going to be able to do on my own. There's literally only so much I can do.
But
Thank you, Sonia.
That's where we all come in. We just got to, we as the people who read your books and love your writing, we have to we have to do our part to get out there and share it. I mean, it's just, those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, you see that I share DA stuff all the time. I share Doc stuff all the time because that's what we have to do. And it's like I told Doc the other day, Susan from the Ohio Bigfoot Conference asked me the other day, said, what's your fee for next year? I said, keep my fee the same as it was this past year and invite Doc this time.
I haven't answered her yet. She texted me too.
Yeah, but I was fine with what she gave me, and if she can take any extra that she was going to give me this coming time, if she feels like it's going to be bigger and she can get Doc up there and that can help Doc out with some sales, I'm all for it, because that's what we have to do for each other. And if me sharing on my little Facebook page helps DA get a few more book sales, then that's what I'm going to do. So I guess that's my soapbox.
Well, folks, I will stop. I will stop. Preaching from the soapbox. I appreciate all of you guys so much. I really do. This journey has been pretty amazing. And it has been a struggle. It really has. I, I I would love to see, my sales like Larry's or Jonathan Mayberry's or Stephen King's. I would love to be in that category with those guys, because then I every day would be like, well, yeah, we all have that thing. I mean, if we all won the lottery tomorrow, every day would be stress free because we all worry about money. We all worry about paying bills. We all worry about the little things in life. But if I can ever hit that level of sales, really my only concern will be writing, because at that point I'll hire a publicist. I'll hire somebody to do all of the publicity stuff. But I'm nowhere near a point where I can afford to do that. Don, thank you for sharing it on Facebook. And anytime you guys post something like that, even if only one person buys a book, that's one more sale than I would have got. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys that are doing that. And I will check in to see why Ed is not showing that linking to me, my author page. And I do need to update my author page as well. And if any of y'all know anything about marketing or like newsletters or anything like that, shoot me an email if you want to jump in and help out. Like I said, I can't afford to pay anybody, but I would sure appreciate the help. Or at least if you got some advice or tell me how to do things like that, because it's an uphill battle learning how to do stuff like that, because that's not why I became a writer. I became a writer because I wanted to tell stories. And I never knew that becoming a writer would mean becoming my own booking agent, becoming a publicist, becoming an advertising agent. There's a lot of hats you got to wear when you're, especially if you're an independent writer. So there's a lot goes on, far more goes on behind the scenes than just what you see in the book. I mean, there's editing, there's paying for a cover artist, there's typesetting, there's layout. It's a lot of work to turn a story into a book. A lot more work than I ever realized. Because man, I tell you, when I had this, since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a writer, but I had this dumb, and I looking back at it, it was an absolute kid thing. And I had that for years. I mean, even up until I was well into my 40s, I always just imagined that I would write my first book and release it, and it would be a big hit, and the light would come down from above, and it's like manna from heaven, and everything's going to be great because I got this book out. And now I'm 34 books in, and I'm barely any better off than I was when I started. Cajun System ranks me up there with Louis L'Amour. That's huge praise. I love Louis L'Amour. Thank you. I was going to say something else and completely slipped my brain. Yeah, I Cajun, I would love to be able to put out a newsletter. Yeah, I don't know the first thing about it. I'm a story writer, not an article writer. It's a totally different skill, and I don't know how to publish one. Newsletters are a great way to drive sales. There are things they call click funnels that I've read about, heard about, but I don't understand marketing. My brain just does not wrap around it. And
well, look what Arlen said. Maybe this is our. Maybe he can help us with a newsletter and things like that.
Well, shoot me an email, DARoberts at DARoberts.net, and we can chat, and maybe we can come up with some ideas. And the newsletters help. A lot of the big authors already have their own newsletters. They generated an email list with thousands upon thousands of names in it. That's something that would probably do through my website. But there's lots of things that we could be doing. I just don't know how to do.
I wonder, and I meant to talk to you about this in Ohio, but I wonder how a website like Squarespace would do for you selling your books yourself, so you get more of the profit, because you've got plenty of copies that you could sell. I wonder if
Annette and I were talking about that just the other day, about possibly keeping like a supply of books on hand. That way, if somebody wanted to buy an autographed copy, we could just ship it straight from the house. It's not something that we're able to do yet. Same thing with the patches, because I get the patches made and sent to me, but I can't list them on my website because I don't have the way to do the e-commerce, if that makes sense. Amazon sells the books, and I don't have to touch that. Same thing with my merchandise store, Teespring. You order a t-shirt, they print it and ship it. So I don't have to keep the merchandise on hand. But if we keep a lot of physical copies of books on hand, then I could sign one, and somebody wanted one made out for somebody in particular, I could do that. So that's something I would like to get into, and I think it's a good resource for us to get into. It's just getting it set up, and maybe we could do it through Squarespace, like you were saying, and then attach it to my existing website. So yeah, that's something definitely worth exploring.
Well, it is what I was thinking. That'd be a way we could advertise for each other, because we could link all three of us, me, you, and Doc, all of our stuff to each other's websites.
Oh,
go
absolutely.
here to get this, then have links to either, so there's things we can do. We just need to figure out how to do them and do them.
And a big shout out to the mods and the alpha readers, because you guys make my job a lot easier. Thank you guys so much for everything you do, and really appreciate each and every one of you guys, because the moderators help us keep the chat going here. The alpha readers help me keep the books improved before they even hit edits, and it's just a great group of people, and I'm really proud to have each and every one of you and helping me along the way. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you guys. We are coming up on the 2.5 hour mark. Robbie's got court in the morning. He's got to go testify in a case, so I don't want to keep him up too late. I don't want him all weary and dreary when he goes dragging into court tomorrow. So we'll probably ought to start winding things down. Especially with this just being Veterans Day, folks, remember the 22 a Day Foundation. Sorry, I got my words all slurred up there. Remember the 22 a Day Foundation, because we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that's 22 too many. And I know, speaking as a veteran and former Leo, we all have our dark days. We have days when memories and stress just overwhelm us. And fortunately, I've got a good group of very close friends that I can text day or night. It doesn't matter, because I know even if Robbie's sound asleep or Doc's sound asleep, they hear that text and they know I'm not going to text them at 3 o'clock in the morning for no damn reason. So I know I've got that net there. And same with Steve. I mean, I could text Steve anytime, day or night, and Steve would respond. And not everybody has that safety net. And remember to check on your friends and family who are first responders or who have served in any capacity, because sometimes the memories that they deal with will haunt them for the rest of their lives. I know my brother Danny had PTSD up until the day he died from Vietnam, and he just passed away a couple of years ago. The memories of what these men and women have been through last a lifetime, and they never really go away. You learn to deal with things like that, but you never forget them. So check on your friends and family that have worn a uniform in any capacity. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care about them. Let them know they shouldn't let the hard days win, because unfortunately, at least 22 times a day, they do. And so again, reach out to your folks and let them know you care about them. And I'm going to do a different toast tonight. I know we've been doing the one from the parting glass for a while, but tonight I'm going to go with another Irish toast. And this one's not just for the veterans, it's for all of you out there. And I know parting glass is saying goodbye to the ones we've lost along the way. But this one's a little more upbeat, and I kind of want to end it on a little more upbeat show tonight. And it's a great little toast, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. It says, "There are good ships and wood ships and ships that sail the sea, but the best ships are friendships, and may they always be." Good night, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.